It was almost midnight. The highway stretched endlessly before me, surrounded by dense, dark woods. I had been driving for hours, and fatigue was slowly creeping in. My eyelids felt heavy, and the road ahead seemed to blur into the darkness. That's when I noticed a faint, flickering light in the distance. As I got closer, I saw it was a small roadside rest stop. The neon sign was barely glowing, casting a dim light over the empty parking lot. I hesitated for a moment. The place looked abandoned, but the exhaustion in my body was stronger than my caution. I decided to pull over. As I parked the car, I felt an odd stillness in the air, the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're being watched. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just the late hour messing with my mind. I stepped out of the car, taking a deep breath. The cold air felt heavier here. The shadows seemed longer, darker. Just a quick rest, I whispered to myself. But deep down, I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that I wasn't alone. I slowly walked toward the rest stop building. The dim light above the entrance flickered sporadically, casting quick, jagged shadows across the walls. The door creaked slightly as the wind nudged it back and forth. Inside, the air was cold and stale, like the place hadn't been used in years. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, some flickering, while others remained completely dead. The tiled floor was stained and cracked, and a distant dripping sound echoed through the narrow hallway. I glanced around. There was no one. No staff, no travelers, just silence. I noticed a vending machine against the far wall. Its screen was dark, and when I got closer, I realized it wasn't even plugged in. Yet the machine vibrated slightly, as if it had just been used. A chill ran down my spine. I turned towards the restroom signs. The men's room door was slightly ajar, creaking as it moved gently. "Hello," I called out, my voice barely louder than a whisper. No response. Against my better judgment, I pushed the door open. The light inside was dim, flickering on and off. The mirrors above the sinks were foggy, even though the air was freezing cold. I leaned in slightly and wiped one of them with my sleeve. For a second, I thought I saw a figure standing in the reflection behind me, but when I spun around, the room was empty. My breath quickened. I tried to calm myself. "You're just tired, seeing things." But then I noticed something strange. One of the bathroom stalls was closed, and underneath the door, a pair of old, worn-out shoes were facing the toilet. They didn't move. I waited, staring. "Is someone in there?" I asked cautiously. No answer. Slowly, I backed out of the restroom, my eyes never leaving the stall. The door creaked behind me as it closed. Then, just as I turned to leave, I thought I heard a faint whisper. My name. Barely audible, but it was there. I froze. But when I looked back, the restroom door was wide open, and the stall door was now ajar. Panic began to creep in as I stared at the open restroom door. The stall that had been closed just moments ago now stood slightly ajar, the pair of shoes gone. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing louder than the eerie silence around me. I quickly turned away, deciding it was time to leave. But as I started walking back toward the exit, I heard something, a soft, dragging sound coming from behind. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head, scanning the dim hallway. Nothing. But the sound continued, steady and slow, like something heavy being dragged across the floor. I quickened my pace. As I reached for the exit door, it suddenly slammed shut in front of me. I jumped back, my breath caught in my throat. I grabbed the handle and yanked it hard. Locked. No, 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 I muttered, pulling harder. Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed something in the reflection of the vending machine's glass. A figure, tall, motionless, standing at the end of the hallway. Its face was pale and blurred, as if it didn't fully exist. Its head tilted slowly to one side, watching me. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. Yet, in the reflection, it remained. Closer now. My hands trembled as I backed away from the door. Suddenly, the flickering lights above began to shut off one by one, starting from the far end of the hall. Click, click, click. The darkness was moving toward me. I ran. Pushing past the vending machine, I found another door leading to the maintenance area. I threw it open and stumbled inside. The room was pitch black. I fumbled for my phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing rows of shelves stacked with cleaning supplies. And something else. On the far wall, written in dark, smeared letters, were the words, "You shouldn't be here." My breath caught in my throat. Then, from the shadows behind the shelves, something moved. Slowly, deliberately. It was coming closer. My flashlight flickered as I stared at the wall. The words, "You shouldn't be here," seemed to bleed in the dim light. Then I heard it. A slow, rasping breath coming from behind the shelves. I tightened my grip on the phone, my hands slick with sweat. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely steady. No response. Just the sound of something shifting, moving closer. I slowly backed away, my flashlight trembling as it illuminated the narrow gaps between the shelves. That's when I saw it. A pale hand, long and thin, reaching out from the shadows. Its fingers scraped along the metal shelves, making a high-pitched screech. My heart nearly stopped. Without thinking, I turned and bolted out of the room, slamming the door behind me. But the hallway was no longer empty. At the far end stood the figure. Closer now, its head tilted unnaturally to one side, limbs too long for its body. It didn't move, but I could feel it watching me. I ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted toward the exit, yanking at the door handle again, still locked. Desperate, I slammed my shoulder against it, once, twice. Finally, the door burst open, and I stumbled out into the cold night air. I sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys. Behind me, I heard the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, growing louder. I didn't dare turn around. The engine roared to life, and I slammed my foot on the gas. As I sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The rest stop was still and silent. But just for a second, in the mirror's reflection, I saw it standing at the edge of the road, watching me, its head slowly tilting again, like it was waiting for me to come back. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away from the rest stop, the headlights cutting through the night as the road stretched endlessly before me. My hands were still trembling on the wheel, my pulse racing in my ears. I kept glancing nervously at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something, anything pursuing me. But there was nothing, just the empty road. When I finally allowed myself to breathe again, I reached for my phone to call someone. But as I unlocked the screen, I froze. A notification popped up. It was an unread message, the sender simply labeled unknown. I opened it. It was a photo, a blurry image of the rest stop, taken from a distance. In the corner of the frame, standing just outside the building, was a dark figure. I couldn't make out the details, but I knew what I saw. I dropped the phone in shock, my heart pounding once more. Then, the phone buzzed again. Another message, this one simply read, "You will never escape." I slammed the phone down, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Was it really over? Had I imagined everything, or was something still watching me? I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it was wasn't finished with me yet. And just then, my car's headlights flickered. For a split second, in the reflection of the windshield, I thought I saw a shadow in the back seat. But when I turned around, nothing. Only darkness. That was my experience at the roadside rest stop. I still don't know if it was just my imagination or something far darker. But I can't forget what happened that night, and I don't think I ever will. If you want to hear more terrifying stories like this, make sure to subscribe to SR's Haunted Stories and stay tuned for the next one. The truth is, some places are better left unexplored. The road was long, dark, and desolate. I had been driving for hours, the only sound being the hum of my engine and the occasional rustling of wind against the trees. It was the middle of the night, and I had no choice but to pull over at a roadside rest stop. Little did I know, this would be the worst decision I'd ever make. Welcome to SR's Haunted Stories. Tonight, I'll share with you a terrifying true experience I had at a seemingly harmless roadside rest stop. What seemed like a quick stop to stretch my legs turned into a nightmare I'll never forget. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our spine-chilling stories. Now, sit back, turn off the lights, and get ready for a tale that will make you think twice before pulling over at the next rest stop. It had been a long, exhausting drive through an isolated stretch of highway. I hadn't seen another car for miles, and the loneliness was starting to get to me. The clock on my dashboard read 2:30 a.m., and my eyelids were getting heavy. I needed a break, a chance to stretch my legs and clear my head. That's when I saw it. A small, poorly lit rest stop just off the side of the road. It looked like the perfect place to stop for a moment, so I pulled into the lot, the tires crunching on the gravel as I parked under one of the dim lights. The air was still, and the silence was overwhelming. Not a single sound, except for the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. As I stepped out of my car, a chill ran down my spine. There was something off about the place. The rest stop seemed abandoned, even though there was a single old truck parked in the far corner. The building was small, with peeling paint and cracked windows. The vending machines near the door looked like they hadn't been touched in years. I shook off the uneasy feeling and decided to head to the bathroom. After all, it was just a rest stop. What could possibly go wrong? As I walked towards the rest stop building, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The silence was deafening, and every step I took seemed to echo louder than it should have. The flickering lights above me cast strange shadows on the pavement, and for a moment, I thought I saw something move just out of the corner of my eye. I paused, scanning the dark corners of the lot, but there was nothing there. Just the old truck, parked far off to the side. I tried to brush it off as nothing more than my tired mind playing tricks on me. But as I reached the door, I noticed something even stranger. The bathroom door, which should have been locked at this hour, was slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. It was just a crack, barely wide enough to see through. I stood there for a moment, staring at it, feeling an unsettling twinge in my stomach. Then, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A faint, muffled sound, as if someone was breathing. It wasn't a normal sound, not like the wind or the rustling of leaves. It was slow, deliberate, like someone was hiding just out of sight. watching me. My heart raced. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I was alone. Or so I thought. I should have turned back right then. I should have gotten in my car and driven away. But I didn't. My curiosity got the better of me. I pushed the bathroom door open, the hinges squealing in protest as if they were warning me to stay away. The dim light inside barely illuminated the small dingy space. The air was thick and the smell of mildew hung in the corners. But it wasn't the smell that made me freeze. It was the sight of something strange on the far wall. Graffiti, but not the kind you'd expect from bored teenagers. This was different. The words were crudely scrawled, like they were scratched into the wall by a desperate hand. "Don't stay here," was the message. Over and over, in jagged, frantic strokes, I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. And that's when I heard it again. The sound of breathing. This time, it was louder, almost as if someone was just behind the partition, right on the other side of the thin wall. I turned, quickly scanning the room. Empty. No one. My pulse quickened. I was starting to feel trapped. The door I'd come through was now slightly ajar again, as if it had moved on its own. Suddenly I felt a cold rush of air on the back of my neck, like someone had just walked past me. I spun around, but there was no one there. My body went cold. I wasn't alone. I turned to leave, my heart racing, but before I could reach the door, I heard a soft shuffle behind me. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the building settling. It was footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps. My pulse pounded in my ears as I turned around. But again, there was nothing. The door to the restroom slammed shut behind me. My breath caught in my throat as I realized I was locked in. Panic surged through me. I banged on the door, shouting for help, but the sound of my voice only seemed to echo back, mocking me. My mind raced, trying to find a way out, but the rest stop felt like a maze. The lights flickered again, and I caught sight of something in the corner of the room. A shadow, standing still, watching me. I froze. It wasn't a trick of the light. There was someone or something there. I couldn't make out the figure, but I could feel its gaze cold and unblinking. Then a voice, low and raspy, whispered from the darkness, "You shouldn't have stayed." The chill in the air grew unbearable. I stumbled backward, tripping over something unseen, and when I looked down, I saw a hand, pale, wrinkled and reaching toward me from under the cracked floorboards. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I bolted for the door, my legs shaking, my breath ragged. Just as I reached the exit, I felt something grab my ankle, pulling me back. I screamed, kicking, desperate to escape. With one final, desperate effort, I wrenched myself free and crashed into the parking lot. I didn't look back. I didn't care what was behind me. I jumped into my car, slammed the door shut, and drove away as fast as I could, the sound of something or someone still echoing in my mind. I never spoke about what happened at that rest stop. Not to anyone. I still don't know what it was, or who, or what was following me that night. But one thing is for sure. I'll never stop at a roadside rest stop again, no matter how tired I am. Before I end tonight's story, remember this. Sometimes the quietest places hide the most terrifying secrets. And sometimes the things you think are just shadows are something much worse. If you enjoyed this terrifying tale, don't forget to subscribe to SR's Haunted Stories. We have plenty more chilling experiences waiting for you. Hit that bell so you never miss out on our next spine-tingling story. Stay safe out there, and as always, watch your back.